Hello guys, welcome back to What If Civilization Started Over. This is episode, I think 14 or 15, but make sure to have the live chat open when this is premiering. Also, I made some small tweaks on the colonial borders, so like there's more straight lines, just like that, and random bad borders. Like down here, some straight line stuff. Up here, more straight lines. No straight lines there. Alright, let's get to the video. But first we see that Scotland will continue expanding with this like purple northern Russian country also expanding. This country will start expanding up here. Panhandle to the ocean, which Scotland will try to go faster, but this Russian country will manage to reach it, taking all of these lakes there. While the Russians will actually be invading, which the only country they would reasonably stand a chance against is this. But of course they're still weak. So we see them invading, but they're quickly pushed back here. This green country will start invading, taking one major city. But then suddenly this green country will end up retreating. And then Russia like, wait, why did they retreat? They're winning. The Crimean Empire is invading. So Crimea will invade from the south. And then Poland sees that it's basically free land. They end up also invading, taking this weird major city, which I need to fix later. But I won't be giving these guys a capital city because, well, they're already cooked. So Russia will manage to get to here, following down the border, and now we can see a peace treaty. Alright, so here's the border, but I'm gonna fix that weird city. Alright, now it's fixed. Continued blue team expansion into Big Hawaii. But also into mainland North America. And then a race to get to this lake will start as both countries begin making a panhandle thing to this lake. Until this West African country will get to the lake first. And they will just claim the land around it. But the blue team is not happy, so they will end up making a dispute over this area. area that the blue team is disputing over. And so this is the land the blue team wants, but yeah, they're probably not gonna get it. Although we see the Iberian Union is almost cut off, but they quickly expand up here before getting a border on this lake. They quickly take around the lake thing, and yeah, they're just taking every lake. In South America, we don't see anything happening. Also, if you're wondering, Ethiopia owns Peru. And yeah, Kenya is just probably the most major event in this video will involve the Turkish Union. Alright, so before this event is revealed, I'll be removing the Union lines for now, just to make it easier. And yeah. Alright, but now the Turkish Union civil war will start. Yeah, but this is also a great opportunity for collapsed countries like Kenya, some of these African countries, maybe India, Oman, Persia. But up here we end up seeing that, if I can select, but we see this rebellion in the Caucasus Mountains, or of the Caucasus Mountains, or Caucasian Mountains, will quickly grow, but the Turkish Union will focus on this rebellion, sending armies up north before getting allies to invade into this one after promising some land. So we see that a country or rebellion will collapse, but these guys will just continue invading, which makes the Turkish Union mad. So now the Turkish Union is in a war with Caspia. But we see the Turkish Union will quickly manage to defeat Caspian armies and even manage to take this island. And then the Caspian island country will end up surrendering. So I won't be covering that one. But we see a counteroffensive against this rebellion, and also the Turkish Union will try to build some space between their capital and the rebellion, with them focusing on getting this one rebellion away. They managed to almost kick this rebellion off, but after a few more weeks of fighting, they will manage to fully kick the rebellion out before they start doing a counteroffensive against this rebellion, taking back 2 major cities, and then they will be stalemated right here. But a rapidly growing group known as the Rapid Revolution Corps, or just the Revolution, they will start to gain some ground, and they slowly become one of the larger rebellions, despite starting off pretty small. But a counteroffensive of Turkish forces will manage to surround this major city before reaching. And also doing that another time, and then they will try to do it another time. The revolution will end up realizing and retreating. Well, Turkish forces move in here to go and secure land against this new Persian rebellion before doing a counteroffensive up north, and yeah, they managed to snake around this one major city, and they managed to encircle it and take it. And now Persia is kind of struggling, and Turkish forces will go ahead and manage to retake a couple major cities against Oman, which Oman is actually just trying to leave the Union, but that's why. We see Turkish forces are easily able to defeat this rather unsupported rebellion, which is a, like, fascist kind of. But this rebellion will quickly be just kicked off, and it will hold off right over in this part, and likely on these islands right here. Well, down here we see that the Turkish Union colony is rebelling, but then, yeah, Kenya's getting in on this. So Kenya quickly sends forces in to just occupy land before Kenyan forces will. What is? I have no idea what that was. But Kenyan forces will make a landing, and now the Turkish Union is like, whoa, 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 you're not reforming your empire, right? And then Kenya is like, yep. But actually, what most people didn't realize in this world is that the Kenyan leader who had been exiled to this island actually escaped. And now he is hiding somewhere, but he's not in Kenya. He's not even in Africa. But a lot of people that know that he escaped are thinking that he is commanding Kenya from somewhere. But Kenyan forces continue pushing, and the Turkish forces that were originally trying to destroy this rebellion will end up refocusing, which allows this rebellion to quickly grow. But Turkish forces are much stronger than Kenya, but they're able to almost basically just obliterate Kenya. But they will not try making a landing in Kenya because that's just gonna waste all their resources. Up here we see the Oman rebellion is starting to take more, pick up its pace more. But what we end up seeing that shocks the Turkish Union is that the Egyptian Empire thing will end up invading, blitzing through nearly the entire thing, taking major city after major city. But the Turkish Union will quickly do a counteroffensive, pushing the Egyptians back before the Egyptians end up retreating. So the Egyptians will retreat to the coastline, which is where they just hold out against the Turkish Union. But the Turkish Union will end up trying to do a counteroffensive, but it quickly fails and they are rapidly pushed back. Before the revolution force will begin picking up more pace across the Turkish Union, especially in these populated regions. the Turkish Union will try to fight back, but now the Turkish Union is beginning to collapse. But they will manage to go ahead and retake the capital, defending the two most populated cities that are near the capital. And yeah, but it's not really looking good for the Turkish Union, as a rebellion from earlier has just restarted in those cities again, which now Turkish forces are just unable to leave these cities now, unless or else the cities will end up rebelling. But yeah, the Turkish Union just isn't able to do anything. They're just collapsing. But we end up seeing that many people are starting to rebel against the Turkish Union, as yeah, it's just not gonna look good at all for the Turkish Union. We see that the Caucasian rebellion will end up actually invading just other rebellions, and it's quickly becoming one of the stronger rebellions. But the Turkish Union will try to do one last counteroffensive, managing to retake tons of land across the country, as the Turkish Union is just trying to hold out against the rebellions. And yeah, the Turkish Union just doesn't seem to be having a good time. But more regions will end up rebelling. And yeah, the Turkish are just, the Turkish Union's leader is just sad. We see that the Turkish Union will end up making a deal with this rebellion right here, and they managed to let this rebellion have its independence as the Cyprus Republic. But the revolution is just refusing to negotiate. But over here we see that the Turkish Union will make a deal with this rebellion, giving it Kuwait independence. And Persia kind of wants to ally with Kuwait, so they end up letting Kuwait have some land. But yeah, the Turkish Union is just collapsing. It's just unavoidable, as the Turkish Union's basically entire empire has just collapsed. It's all just rebelling. And yeah, it's just not gonna be a very good time for the Turkish Union. They have definitely seen better days. We see that this Turkish Union will until the revolution forces will end up completely just appearing throughout the entire country, and it's likely being funded by Libya and Egypt, and likely the Iberian Union. But now we can see the division of the Turkish Union. After almost like 5 centuries, or like, no, I think it's like more. I think like part 5, I think, is when they formed. I don't know. But we will see a peace treaty now. Alright, so this will be the peace treaty to the Turkish Civil War. Yeah, they're pretty divided up, but yeah. We see that some of the larger countries that got out or got land, and no, wait, the larger countries that got independence are these three in the triangle. So Persia, Saudi Arabia, and Lebanon. Yeah, that's more Lebanon than Israel. But down here we see that the Kenyans are a bit larger. So they're just a itty bitty microscopic bit larger. But over here we see continued expansion or exploration of this continent before the entire thing is just explored. And then everyone just starts exploring it. But actually we see that the Red Team's leader, who had been lost after World War I, and really no one knew where he went. Well, he actually fled he fled Venice. So he fled from Venice, sailing down, landing here, before he went to this city, then that city, then there, before going there, before going city through city, until he made it to the capital of South Iberia, which no one knew he was there yet, before he sailed to this island, then landed in here, before sailing down, landing right here, and then no one really knows where he was for a few hours when he was in this island. But one person that saw him from this West African nation saw him on a boat going this way. So yeah. But after that, some now are suspecting that he went to here, freed Kenya's leader, then fled all the way down before crashing in this city, which then but the red team leader ends up going from this city to these cities, but then gets lost here, then manages to get to here before exploring down to here, before he is arrested at the border of South African Iberia, and he is taken to a jail over here, where he then escapes prison, running over. But he ends up buying a cheap boat right here before sailing to a port over in Madagascar, buying a better boat that is way more capable of sailing across, like, let's say, the Pacific Ocean, and it's actually the same type of boat that China used to sail to South America. So he ends up buying that and sailing over all the way across the Indian Ocean. But he's like random. That is when his compass just stops working from a storm. Before he arrives in the capital of Australia recruiting people, there's something secret, then he turns back down here to the capital, then it goes down, crossing major village after major village. This is his journey across Australia. And you wanna guess what's gonna happen in Australia? The Red Team Revolution, which quickly gains force and taking basically the entire country except for the capital area, which is then quickly taken by the new Red Team Empire. And the Red Team is back, stronger than ever, and then they immediately invade all of Antarctica, taking the southern half of the world for 1v1ing the mighty nation of Greece. They end up taking over all of Europe and Asia, apparently. And we see World War 68. But what a fool Greece was. As the second the red team looks like it's weak, they suddenly become stronger again. And then, yeah. What am I yapping about, bro? I'm so unemployed, bro. But as this new red team empire thing, the red team's leader will quickly go and start colonizing more land to make this country stronger. What is happening? But it's gonna be pretty hard for the red team to become a major world power, because just everyone that is already strong and like 20 times stronger. And everyone has their colonies already and their cool South American empires and their awesome empires in Indonesia and their giant Chinese like ghost state, I guess, and then their giant Korean empire and their giant cool Mongolian empire that's super buff. But then the red team already has its rival. Which we see the red team will quickly go and explore this area, but they won't be able to explore this super far area. So they won't be able to explore that far area, but they begin expanding a lot. And then Zealandian Empire will see this, and that the red team is actually back. And yeah, we just see the division of Australia. And then we see, alright, we will see a treaty to divide Australia. Kind of based around, your coastline, kind of. So the larger coast, the more land you'd get. But we see that the new red team empire is gonna gain most of this land. Although there was some land exchanges between the red team and Zealand. I don't know why that was there. But we see that the Zealand Empire thing will just expand. And yeah. But the red team is quickly just expanding a great amount in this continent before hosting a division of this continent between all of the countries on it. Which, guess who was late? Yep, guess who was late? It was Madagascar. The red team has quickly reformed the empire of sorts, but it's not like a major world power because there isn't very much trade. And also the Zealand and Papua New Guinea countries are also not very strong compared to other countries. Like, compared to the blue team can just go and obliterate them all in just one single war. But we see the blue team is pretty much expanding, but the red team's leader remembers Big Australia finally landing and exploring over here before meeting up with blue team explorers. And this isn't just the red team's leader, this is just everyone in the red team's exploration teams. So this is gonna be a bit awkward as the blue team is now kind of gonna have to literally border the red team, which is definitely gonna create a ton of tension. You see the red team will end up focusing on getting all of these islands up here, and also some islands over here. But yep, the red team is colonial again. But the red team is definitely like the 6th weakest country. Simply, they just aren't populated at all. They don't have any trade. Their land is pretty cold. Map. But yeah. Alright, but over here, we end up seeing just expansion of the Mongolian country. And then small exploration into here, into the Tibetan Plateau, which is gonna end up struggling a lot. But yeah, we end up just seeing a lot of exploration of some countries. And then India will expand, but then everyone just gets mad at India. And everyone in the world forms a coalition against India. Just joking, but the red team... We see a rebellion starting down here in the red team, and then they quickly just end up giving independence to this Australian country, or this new rebellion of Australian country, which, also just because I think it looks cool. No. But yeah, that's... we can kind of start the collapse of this brand new empire. Yep, the red team's empire is already gone. We see big Hawaii becoming a country apparently, and it's likely one of the weakest countries in the world because it just has no population. Until we see the mighty nation, this Australia. Yep, the red team is just having a bad day. It rained once and now everyone's just blaming the red team's leader and everyone's just rebelling. What a noob. And we see this nation being formed over here. But yeah, after that happens, we see that everyone just goes in and takes some land from this new country. Since they're just super small and unstable. We could say that they are pretty unstable. And they should join the SMP. And you know what that SMP is called? The unstable SMP. Am I unemployed, bro? Do I need to get a job? Spam 1 if I need to get a job. And then spam 3 if I need to make 10 Wicso videos a day. And spam 2 if you should think that I should just move to Mars and become Elon Musk. So after the jumping of this small country right there, Australia's pretty mad, but yeah, they kind of just collapsed. Yeah, their mighty empire wasn't very mighty and wasn't very much of an empire. And just to twist the knife more, I said, just to twist the knife more. Ouch. So an invasion by this South Indian country. Just got colonized. They aren't very happy now. Anyways, let's make some more major cities. Major cities. Alright, but we see some cities appearing around Zealandia and stuff. No. With the blue team kind of funding the population in there. It's a major city, which is very important plot-wise. I'm not capping. I would never cap. Like, when have I ever capped? Like, I've never capped. But then we see a mega city right there. Psych, you thought that there would be a city with 10 trillion population already? 5,000. But yeah, we just see a lot of major cities popping up, with this area becoming very densely populated. So we see a lot of empty areas are becoming more populated. And yeah, we are just seeing that most countries don't really like the red team, but we see that around these guys' capital is kind of becoming quite dense. because there may be a lot of, maybe, like, trade going. Wait, I'm gonna actually reduce these cities because that's just a monstrous amount. But we see a lot of major cities popping up around this area, as it's just very densely populated. Before a new thing, like giant, just massive villages. Yeah. But there isn't very much giant, massive villages unless you're in Indonesia. These guys are just filled with major villages. So we see a lot of stuff there. Quite a lot of major villages kind of just like near here, which these villages are probably made up of like explorers of countries, which is likely why there's so many along the unclaimed land, or just people going into the unclaimed land to like commit crimes and stuff, because crimes are evil and they like evil for some reason. They're weird. But we see that there's quite a lot of major villages around this area. But most villages in where the Turkish Union are major cities, because that's just how much of a sigma the Turkish Union was. This is gonna be basically the end of the video, but wait, we need to talk. Dun dun dun. But the population of this world is likely about to be 1 billion, because like 200 million people died in World War One. So it was at 990 something million, then it went to like 800 million. Wait, no, it was like, I think 750 million. And yeah, that's not a very good amount of people to die in a world war like that. Definitely not very fun. But yeah. So, yeah. Yep. But the population is probably about like 900 million, 90 million, and like 1 million. It's just 9 million away. Yup. Only 9 million. Some crazy shenanigans aren't gonna happen right when it's at 999 million. Right. Alright, we will see you in the next time. Am I nearly this annoying?